Hello, everyone. It's a man Manethrin again, and I'm telling you, this season of Wheel of Time is proving to be the Dark One's taint on Robert Jordan's light in a way that I've not expected. We knew it was going to be bad, but let's get into this. We open up the second episode of this season with a nonsense vision that really is there only to set up the scene where Rand is revealed to be sleeping his way for rent at Celine's Inn, which we'll find out later is really just a hut, it seems. Um, she's a landlord, not an innkeeper. But anyway, it's it's really bad, and he's already sleeping with somebody else, which at this point in the books we know that's not Rand's game. It's followed by him walking into this asylum. It's this whole 3-minute setup of practically no character building. We see Rand's a nice guy in the streets or whatever. He's respected for some reason. It's bad. Now then we cut to Lan and Moron. They are amazingly healed of their Thakandar stabs, because that exists in this show for some reason. We also see that Varen is aware that Nynaeve is exiled from the tower, where she says, "I know," and then just stands up and walks away. It's like, who writes this stuff? There's, you say, "Oh, well, I suppose you'll be going to Tarvalon. I've been exiled from the White Tower. I know," and then walk away. What the hell? That's your conversation? I mean, this is pathetic. And Moiraine, or Moron, is still a cow to Lan, even after Lan is the one that saved her. And this is really going to be atrocious at the end of the episode. So then we cut into a scene with Perrin. Uno is actually not a bad character in this in the book or in the show. He's actually acting like he would in the books with his cussing, even though it's not his cursing like he should in the books. At least he's bitching and moaning and being a malcontent, right? But then the scene's completely countering that goodness with the fact that Loyal is sitting there on a horse. Come on. Never mind, he's also out of proportion to everybody else, but that's the care that we expect to get from Amazon and Rafe Slopkins. They also reference Ingtar references uh, Loyal to be the builder, so he tells him to stay there. But they haven't set up what that name means, so it's a useless Easter egg. Thank you very much. Then we get another scene of Perrin's plot vision. Wonderful, wonderful scene of being in the room, and you got all the flies in there, so that kind of Easter egg references the books too. So, gee, thanks a whole lot for that. Um, and then Elias tells Perrin, basically, that's not how the Force works. So we have that. That's great. Um, then we get to the hanging the fade. This scene, as a reader coming into this scene the first time, this scene, because the main bad guys that you run into in this book series are the Fades, and yes, you run into some of the Forsaken at the end of the first book, but for the most part, they're running from Fades, and so this scene should scare the absolute piss out of any individual. But because they've done the fades so dirty in this series, with bit parts in maybe 3, 4 episodes last season, and then an appearance at the end of this previous episode, you get this here, and you're like, okay, what could have done this to a fade? Well, who cares? Let's just move on, because I'm more concerned about the high school drama that's going to go on in the White Tower rather than this. But instead of going to the White Tower, it cuts back to the insane asylum where we meet Errol, who is apparently Rand's buddy. That's who Rand is taking care of, who is a blade master who has apparently misplaced his blade, because that happens. Um, and then later on in the scene, we figure out that Rand is being trained by Errol in sword forms because Rand sometimes is able to sneak his sword into an insane asylum to be trained, which drives me out of my mind, because when you consider that this insane asylum has been presented so far with far more people than what we've seen in the White Tower at any given time, how in the world are they going to find secret space to do sword forms when especially the orderly who scares him in this scene, basically says that at least he gets outside. So that means that Errol and Rand can't go outside to train, which means they got to find an inside space that's also quiet and secret. And so now this is going to be the setup to the end where Rand's going to actually know what to do with a sword. And this is supposed to explain that away, I'm guessing. What a damn joke. Oh my goodness. So then we go to another scene. Eggy gets jealous that Nynaeve is hanging out with Leandrin, getting part of the cool clique or something like that. And it cuts to a healing scene where this one chick heals this one other girl of breakback fever or whatever it's called. Because, plot device, whatever. And so you see this woman with this stole on. It's got the 7 colors of the Aja on the cuffs. It's actually not a bad looking outfit. Uh, as far as what I would expect from an accepted outfit. But what drives me nuts about it is, again, she's accepted, and it's her healing this girl of breakbone fever, which is a complicated disease in the stories. It's a death sentence in most places. And in the books, healing is explained as something that takes a lot of training, because when you use or weave it incorrectly, it ends up having an opposite effect. You can go very quickly from healing somebody to killing them. And so we're expected to believe that Aes Sedai are letting an accepted heal this disease. Yeah, right. What a ridiculous thing. And then Leandrin ends up being a car salesman for the Red Aja to Nynaeve, saying it's not so bad, and offers to teach Nincompoop, but she needs to go through the arches first and become an accepted, because she's allowed to train accepted. Isn't that sweet? Then we get a Matt scene where Leandrin brings him the sweet cakes that she just bought. We get more tunneling, and really it is a completely useless scene. And I think the only reason it was put in there was because we saw Leandrin palm the crimson medicine that just dulls pain, but it slowly kills you. And then we see her buying the sweet cakes. And so I think they put this scene in there because we see her then instantly bringing the sweet cakes into Matt. And so it's, oh, is she going to kill Matt? Oh, no. Oh, no. Shut up, show. Oh, it's so stupid. Next, we got Elaine. Her introduction. If you had introduced Elaine the way that they did in the first book, it was such a great introduction. It was a fun scene. It was fun to go through the castle, all of that. Here they just bore her. It's like, hey, we're coming to college and we're moving into a dorm room and woohoo! Although we find she's been in the tower for a while, just in a separate section because she's special and stuff. Mm. The show just wastes what's actually a properly casted individual with its writing. And Egwene, at that point in time, tells her, no, here in this part of the tower, we start our days early, which should clue Elaine into the fact that, hey, Eggy's been in here for a while. But then Elaine just assumes that when she gets over into Egwene's room, that she just moved in as well, and then looks foolish because she obviously didn't pay a damn bit of attention to the fact that Egwene's been here for a while and knows the routine of the tower. And then assumes Two Rivers gear because of the stitching of her blankie, and then calls her subject, and just comes across as a total snot, and then looks at her and she's like, have you ever wondered what's in store for us in the future? Some of the best relationships were formed, like Cadswain and so. This could be just the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Oh, make me sick. Oh, now Shiriam's now meeting with Alana, and apparently in their conversations, Alana's warders are allowed to be involved in knowledge and actually involved in the conversation and the negotiation or whatever. So that's great. Most out of this scene, the acting is absolutely horrible. The most passable one is Shiriam, but overall, everything is so overacted. It is such bad writing, such bad direction. It's pathetic. We have another useless scene in conversations with Perrin. And it comes back, and Varen is talking with Moiraine in the middle of the night, and somehow deduces that one of the boys, she does specify boys, so we'll give her credit at least. She knows a lot more than apparently the writers of the show. But one of the boys must be the dragon. So that's great. I don't know how she deduces that. The book does it very well. The show, not so much. But what's funny about this scene, or well, stupid again, is that Moiraine feels like she has to threaten Varen. Now, this is pulled from the books, except again, the books do it well. Here, she is a woman cut off from the power, so she tries to secretly grab her knife and step towards Varen before Varen kind of just says, okay, that's far enough. Like, moron. What do you think you're going to do, even if you could clear the blade from there? It's baffling how stupid they set up these scenes just because they think it will add to the dramatic effect of a scene. It is so retarded. Hmm. So then Rand tracks the other orderly, beats the crap out of him, practically kills him with the power, if not completely kills him with the power. And, you know, so now Rand is, if he's not a murderer at this point, Rand is for sure somebody who is a criminal. So more character building stuff there from the cast. But then he gets back to the hotel room, and Celine's there waiting for him because, all Celine wants to do is jump somebody's bones. So she walks up to him, and tries to seduce him, and he's like, no, no. And she's like, oh, but we can be alone together. And he says, no. And then he flips on her and pins her to the wall, and then goes in. And it's like, wait a minute, Rand, you were just saying no. And what? Come on. But nope, we've got to have the implication of all of the sex, all of the sexes, all the good stuff for these writers, because that's all that they can do. So that's great. Add another notch there for you, Rand. Oh man. Um, Shiriam in the next scene reveals that she's uh, the mistress of feigned authority. She tries to come down on Elaine for having servants. Doesn't really come off too well. I mean, how she can't tell Nynaeve to take that stupid healer's belt off, but yeah, oh well. Then we get the wonderful scene of Leandrin and her son. I do believe that it was the second episode last season as well. We had the the ferryman yelling as he's killing himself, going into the water, going, "But my son!" And here we have Leandrin all but saying, looking at Nynaeve, saying, "But my son!" Uh, but she gets mad at Nynaeve, slaps her, tells her to get out before she kills her. That's great. Uh, and then and then looks at her son and says, I think possibly, I could be wrong, but possibly the first time in this series that a woman has ever said, I'm sorry to a male character. How about that? And it has to be Leandrin to do it. Good grief. Oh. Now, what's really interesting, too, about this is revealing the secret that Moiraine knew about and threatened to reveal to the tower if Leandrin didn't step off last season, right? Maybe you recall that. Can't blame you if you didn't, because it was worthless anyway. Well, that's a pretty shitty thing to threaten somebody with if you know who this individual is. And then the reaction from Leandrin at that point, it was, as I recall, just kind of standing there, kind of gape faced. And that's all that she can do. I'm sure if she was truly caring about her son back then, the reality would have been a much harsher reaction against Moiraine. Oh, next scene we see Matt meeting Min. Oh boy, yeah, great, that's fantastic. Then we're followed by a scene of a campfire with Lan and Moron and Varen and everybody, with some recollections about sex or sex life going away or whatever. And then we have how Lan and Moron met. And so now we've actually had officially more accurate storytelling from the prequel of The New Spring than we have of The Great Hunt here in the second season, which is supposed to be about the Great Hunt. So, way to go, guys. Way to waste some script time on a prequel that nobody cares about, quite honestly. Now we follow this up with more Matt and Min. That's basically useless. The only epic thing out of epic, quotation marks, about this scene is we see that Min has a vision that is not her vision, that or what should be her vision, but she has a vision where Matt stabs and kills Rand. So that's great, which pretty sure that's going to be a fake out. Um, in terms of it'll happen, but it won't be Rand that's actually killed. It'll be somebody disguising themselves as Rand, probably. Either way, it's stupid and it is way out of character for Matt. I guess the other way that they could cover this is because if her visions all come true, then Matt's a dark friend, which also wouldn't surprise me regardless. That's great. Um, then we've got a bed scene between Celine and Rand, and They talk about how they like other people and that they're just using each other for sex, I guess. It's wonderful. It's like a it's like the '80s rock ballad "Love Bites" from Def Leppard. Who do you think of? Does he look like me? Do you tell lies? Ugh, it's just it's so cringe. Cut back to the White Tower. Elaine gets to see Eggy's jealousy side. Says it doesn't look good on you. Nincompoop is standing outside the door, and she hears all of that, and so that makes her mad, and she walks away. This whole scene is just full of some unreal selfish dialogue that is totally unearned. And how how are these people even liking each other? you know there's no reason for anybody in this show to like each other because nobody nobody looks out for one another. They're all about themselves. Oh man. And then we have this taking Nynaeve to the arches in a ceremonieless accepted trial because there's only three Aes Sedai. There's no pomp and circumstance with it like there is in the books. And we get to see the arches. There's three of them ish. Two of them are broken, so apparently you go through the same march three times in the show. So that's great. You can't even attempt to get it right just for the sake of getting it right. Show, come on. Oh, and then we get to this scene with Lan and Moiraine or Moron, and it's just fucking horse shit. Lan decides that he thinks it's necessary that he didn't sense the fade, so he's got to apologize to Moron. Never mind the fact that Moron was the one that left the protection in the first place. Keep that in mind, folks. This is so stupid and ridiculous. And then Moron admits that she was wrong about everything, so that's great. So you've admitted that, but then some of her next lines are, quote, "We've never walked this path together," saying this to Lan. Then she says that she lied and said Rand's alive, and that her loyalty is to Rand and Rand alone, not to them, but to Rand alone. And then directly looking at him and saying, quote, "You failed me," in reference to not protecting her from the fades when she was the one, again, that left all of her necessary protection because she has no power. It's nonsense. No blame taking whatsoever. And then she finishes them all off by saying, "We were never equals," which horse shit there too. And what does Lan do as he's listening to this onslaught of bullshit from Moron? He just stands there. And he's not even acting stoic. He stands there acting like a complete wuss, completely emasculated, while, as we see in the scene, the warder and the other two Aes Sedai are standing right there. And they're going to take him to Tarvalon, and Moiraine threatens that if Lan doesn't let her be, then she's going to have Varen forcefully bond him. Ho, 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 ho. Yeah, that actually was a threat. And that, even in the books, is a very serious one that has serious moral implications that should piss everybody off. Oh my goodness. Thankfully, this scene ends after taking way too long. Then we run to Perrin. Perrin's asleep, and the Koopa Troopas attack. They capture Perrin and drag him forever. This man who is 6'5" or whatever, and he can't sit there and wrench himself free from these soldiers to then get up and then beat the crap out of them. That's amazing. Meanwhile, you've got Uno, who in the show is less than 4'4", and he's whipping everybody's ass. So Perrin, who's got 2 feet on him, can't get up and free himself from two guys. You know, No, there's no balance to this show whatsoever. Oh, but Ingtar and Uno, they're buddy cops, and they save Perrin. And then you hear Loyal roaring like a lion, and the captions actually said lion roaring instead of Loyal roaring. It's just so dumb. And so he's throwing people all over the place. And then you got Perrin after he's freed. He begins punching all these guys in the helmet with his bare fist, so that works out for some reason. Must be those gnarled blacksmith hands that he somehow appropriated from his fridged wife. And then what is what is an actually semi good scene in terms of action. It's actually presented. It's lit well enough that you can actually watch this. Then they stop fighting and they see the pacifier squad approach, and they stop what they're doing and wait for them to attack, because that's exactly what you do in battle. Is when the heat of the battle is on, you wait to see what the enemy does instead of press your advantage or something. Oh man. And then they blow him away. They wake up the next morning, Perrin's being dragged again, and there's Ishi with Suroth saying they'll have to be ready, won't they? As he's staring at Perrin. Ooh, big deal. And then we see that Rand is promoted because he beat the shit out of the orderly. So there you go, folks. That's episode 2. Episode 1 was amazingly bad. Episode 2 doesn't get any better. This is just some hot garbage that's Amazon, Rafe Judkins, all of them. If you had any ability to feel shame at all, you should feel it, because you can't do this right. Anyway, let me know what you think below in the comments, and we'll see you for episode 3 if I can bear to do it. Chagar Navran, Taishar Manetharan.